oftentimes they think that, oh, I'm going to a foreign country, I'm going to an English-speaking country, which means I'll be surrounded by English, which means I'll absorb everything,
Mm-hmm.
and in 6 months I'll be speaking fluently.
Yeah.
And that is so not true.
What does a successful student look like? If you could describe, the students who come to Langports or any other English school and they get the most out of it, do they have a certain, set of skills or behaviors or habits that you see time and time again that lead to, success?
Um, Number one, if you come to a foreign country to learn a foreign language, you should practice the foreign language you come to study. Yeah, you came here to study.
Yeah.
What happens is a lot of students tend to mingle with people from
Mm-hmm.
the same country they were from, and this is very negative. So the first thing would be mingle with students from other countries. So
Because that's something I get told quite often. They'll be like, but how do I meet other Australians? When I've just arrived, and I'll say, you don't have to meet other Australians. You just have to meet anyone who doesn't speak your native language as their native language, right? Where the common language is English.
hmm hmm yeah, so that's the first thing. So try to speak to people who don't speak the same language as you, and then you'll be forced to speak English.
Yeah.
That's a good habit that a great student would have. What else? Homework. I know it's so cliche. Yeah, students may hate when teachers say that, but like from experience, I can say I learned English almost all by myself. Later on, I went to school and I studied English in a language school, but most of what I know, I learned by myself.
Yeah.
So, and how did I do that? Literally sitting at my desk and studying.
Giving yourself homework every single day.
Yeah, yeah. Grammar, pronunciation, reading. I remember we didn't. I didn't have internet growing up, so when I found a magazine in English, when someone gave me, even if it was a known magazine in English, I would devour that. I was like, oh my God, this is so precious,
Yeah.
regardless of the subject. Just
Hmm.
because that was English, I was like, oh my God, there must be 1,000 words I don't know here, and I want to learn all of them. So this eagerness is also important. Yeah, you have to be eager. You have to have that insatiable desire to learn more and more, because the process is never complete. It's, as you said, it's an ongoing thing.
Do you think many students come in with sort of the wrong expectations too, where they'll think I'll come to class and the teacher will teach and I will just absorb, but they don't realize that it's sort of the inverse, where the teacher's there to sort of inspire and just give them access to information, but they have to be the ones sort of driving, right? They have to be the ones that are teaching themselves.
You described it so perfectly. Yes, that's exactly, yeah, that's exactly what happens. And oftentimes they think that, oh, I'm going to a foreign country, I'm going to an English-speaking country, which means I'll be surrounded by English, which means I'll absorb everything,
Hmm.
and in 6 months I'll be speaking fluently.
Yeah.
And that is so not true. I've lost count of how many times I've had students come to me and say, and crying, saying to me, "Oh, I've been here for 6 months and I haven't learned anything." I was like, "Oh, it's not that simple." Especially if they come
Yeah.
here with no English. It takes a long time. It takes a long time. So first you have to get used to the sound of English. You have to get used to the accent. You have to learn a lot of words. You need a lot of vocabulary to be able to understand English reasonably well. And then when it comes to speaking, you need to understand the structure of sentences to be able to make sentences and convey your message. It is a long process, and then for you to develop fluency, you have to be able to do all of that quicker and quicker, which requires your brain to be very familiarized with
Yeah.
this process of receiving and giving back information. It takes time, as anything in life. Practice is the key. Repetition. So it happens quite often. Yeah. So they come here thinking that they're going to learn English, or that just being in the classroom listening to the teacher is going to make them speak, is going to make them become better writers, better speakers. And that's not true. In my class, I'm teaching an advanced level now. I tell them in CAE, there is very little teaching because you're supposed to know all of the grammar by now. You
Yeah.
just to revise the structures, and we're going to practice them. We're going to try to use the structures that we'll revise in writing, in speaking, and that's pretty much it. And then we're going to repeat and repeat and repeat all of that over and over again. We're going to write like 4 or 5 essays. We're going to write at least 2 or 3 reports, letters, using all of those structures that you revised, that you were meant to come here already knowing, or at least being aware of their existence. So, but yeah, that's it. And it's hard for them to understand that, but yeah, they learn the hard way.
It's funny though, because I think it is like weight loss, right? Or going to the gym, where it's like go hard to begin with and it only gets easier, right? You can get, if you come to Australia and you start learning English, really set up those things like, living with people who don't speak your native language, working hard, getting in good habits, getting into a routine, and just putting the time in for the first 6 months, and it'll pay dividends later on, and you won't have to work as hard, or it won't feel like you're working as hard to keep improving, right? But quite often people, they get here and they don't want to go too far outside of their comfort zone, right? And so they end up actually having a much harder time overall for a longer period of time than if they just really nailed down, worked hard in the beginning, right?
As you said, it's like going to the gym. Yes, you can't stop. If you stop going to the gym, your muscles will shrink. If you stop practicing, if you stop reading in English, you're going to get rusty. If you stop speaking in English, your fluency levels will decrease. So, it's the process will never be complete. Yeah, but that's what I can say. If you want to get to a proficiency level, you have to develop habits. It's like if you want to have a nice body shape, you have to develop healthy eating habits. So if you want to speak like a native speaker, or if you want to increase your fluency levels, improve your pronunciation skills, etc., you have to develop habits. So try to read an article on the internet every day. Try to read the news every day. Just do a little bit every day.
And it's those little things that count, right? Like you change your phone into English, change Facebook into English, watch the news in English, read your articles, like all of those pages that you would otherwise like in Portuguese or your native language in English, the equivalent, so that it's little bit by little bit, your whole world sort of gets anglicized, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. A silly thing I did yesterday. I had some blackheads on my face, and I was like, oh, why do I have so many? I was like, where do they come from? What? And, I sort of asked myself these questions, and I was like, okay, I'm going to YouTube or read something about it. And then instead of reading about it in Portuguese, I looked it up in English.
Yeah.
It's just a habit. It's just a habit.
Well, this is one of those things I envy you guys learning English so much, because in pretty much any language, any other language in the world that you speak as a native language, when you start learning English, things open up in terms of how much information, media, movies, podcasts, books, you name it, how much access you have to just so many different things. The internet is effectively in English, right? But for me, when I was learning Portuguese, it was like a bottleneck where all of a sudden, I'm like, holy crap, there's, telenovelas and that's about it, right? Like I'm kidding. But there's much fewer podcasts, there's fewer books, and especially in Australia, it's so much harder to get access to any of that stuff. So you almost don't have an excuse, right? If you're interested in anything and you're learning English, you can learn about that thing in English, or you can look it up in English if you're trying to research it.
Yeah, because I guess, yeah, the amount of people who speak English, yeah, it's like I don't know the right number, the right figure, but it's, yeah, there are a lot more people who speak English in the world than people who speak Portuguese, and
Yeah.
it's like people who study, I don't know, people who do research, also most of them publish the results of their research
Yeah.
in English. So yeah, you have more access to, yeah, literally everything you want in English rather than in Portuguese. Yeah, that's a
But
shame.
that's a big key though, right? Isn't it? It's working out what you're interested in, and it could be anything, and then just following that interest, but doing it in the context of English. So if you like video games, play them in English. If you like, crime novels, read them in English. You can choose your own adventure, but that's the key to staying motivated, and can use English as sort of like it's a byproduct. Improving your English is a byproduct of following your passion that you already have, whether it's, learning how to better clean toilets, whatever. Just keep doing that, but do it in English. Like I recently got a PlayStation 4. I was like, screw it, I'll get one. We need a DVD player in the house. So I got that, but I bought. Sorry.
Good excuse.
I know exactly, but I bought a bunch of games that are in Portuguese that have Portuguese, and so I was like, look, Kel, I'm learning. But it was in Portuguese from Portugal, so that actually screwed me up quite a lot. I think they were saying things like cum caraças
Oh
and
my God.
Heus chipatum. So all of these expressions that are very weird that I've never heard. But
G'day guys, that was a short clip from my interview with Brazilian English teacher here in Australia, Milene Sales. It was a pleasure having her on. Make sure that you keep your eye out for the upcoming full episode, which will be out in a few days, and you'll be able to download the full episode on my podcast, the Aussie English Podcast. You'll be able to find that via any good podcast app on your phone, tablet, or computer. In the meantime, if you want access to any of my other content, my courses, and the online academy, you can visit me at aussieenglish.com.au. I'll see you there, and I hope you have a ripper of a day. See ya!